Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another Monday night live stream. I hope everybody is well, and I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. How is everybody? What have you been up to? What are you doing tonight? Who's painting? Who's just sitting chilling? Who's been hobbying all weekend? Who's been rolling dice? Let me know what you've been up to before we start on tonight's interesting topic, shall we say. So, yes, let's have a look and see who we've got in the chat this evening. My chat only goes back to 6 o'clock. I think there was a load of chat before that. But yeah, when I started up the laptop to get some text and stuff, it had all gone by that time. So, we've got in the live chat, Super Pumpkin Man was in nice and early. Good evening to you. Arnold DeGans asking me to start an hour earlier. Yeah, the little one doesn't really go down to bed very well, mate. So by 9 o'clock, this is the reason I always started at 9 o'clock, right from day one, really, was because I knew that by that point he'd at least have kind of settled down and gone to sleep by then. Dirk Ignazak is in as well. Good evening, Dirk. I hope you're well, mate. Jacob's in as well, saying the new Lumineth models are gorgeous. Lumineth is what's kind of prompted tonight's chat, shall we say. Go down, a bit of chat between all those folks. We also had Phil Wilkinson in, about 28 as well. Good evening, Phil Wilkinson. Mark Zielinski was in as well, nice and early. Says, hopefully I can get back around when the video starts. Hope so, mate. I hope to see you in. That'd be very nice. We had Mark Wright in as well, saying hope everybody had a good weekend too. Thank you very much, Mark. I had a very good weekend, actually. I'll have a bit of a chat about the weekend later on. No hobby stuff. But yeah, after last week when I was saying about how I was feeling a bit unwell and a bit kind of not very fit and stuff, I've had a week of healthy food, exercise, and I'm feeling fab at the minute. Lord Maiden was in as well, nice and early. Hello to you, Dave Dugg as well. Says the secret to GW's pricing is just 1,000% markup. Well, we'll get to them. Christopher Warden, hello to you. Ian as well. Palmsy, good evening. Six in the head, mate. Scott Longworth says, evening all, long time no see. Nice to see you back as well, Scott. I hope you're keeping well. I saw your Facebook post, mate, been doing a bit of fishing. Very nice too. Steve Evans, good evening to you, mate. Steve Parfitt as well is working on his Brothers and Badgers cottage tonight and some papercraft scenery. Speaking of papercraft scenery, I've been getting ready for my review of the battle system scenery. Nostock again's in as well. Good evening, Nostock. Busey's in. Says looks like another good interactive topic. I hope so, mate. The idea of this one tonight is I mean, obviously something topical is what's kicked it off and started the topic tonight. And however, whether you play Games Workshop miniatures or buy Games Workshop miniatures or you play their games or not, this is kind of relevant, and I'll touch on why this is a little bit different to other companies as well as we go through. Krabby's in as well. Good evening, you lovely lot, he says. Hello, Krabby, how are you doing, mate? Joachim says good evening. He's listening in as usual while he's continuing to paint his Spire Tyrant. Nice, mate. Bit of Warcry on the table there. Jeffrey Higdon, good afternoon from Atlanta, Georgia. Good evening, Jeffrey. How you doing, mate? Peter Nicholas says, hold on, I've got the washing up to do first. I saw somebody saying, I don't know where I saw it, in the chat here or in our Patreon chat, but somebody was saying that they like to use the washing up at the end of the day because we're working from home at the minute, like a lot of people are. Almost that point where, like, when they finish working for the day, they put the laptop away and they kind of wash the dishes, even though they've got a dishwasher, and that's almost kind of that wind down moment before they kind of like then relax. And it's funny because I was washing the dishes tonight before I kind of come and started setting up here for that same reason, just to see what it was like. And actually, it's probably not a bad way to wind down. Christian Reeves, good evening, mate. How are you doing? Malkavian's in as well. Nice to see you, mate. How are you? Christopher Warden in. He's in sweet mate before start time. Glenn Griffin, good evening to you, mate. Bobby Clark's in. Stu McTurty's in. Lord Maiden. Cardos Darkforge says howdy. Good evening to all of you. Blizzards, I don't know if I mentioned Blizzards before. James Hart, good evening to you, mate. Palmsy's doing a bit of chilling. He's been out all day. Went to the Hard Rock Cafe for lunch and had a good burger. I'm jealous, mate, because I've definitely been eating a lot more healthy stuff, and kind of a burger from Hard Rock Cafe is definitely off the menu at the minute. James is painting his Imperial Death Troopers tonight. Cardos is saying, hope everyone's having a good day. Tony Booth Leiden, hello, mate, how are you? He's painting some Guardians of the Galaxy tonight. I saw you had them all built ready to go, mate. I must admit, I do like that Nebula figure. They've done a really good job of that. I'd love to see some of those Marvel figures in the flesh. I've only ever seen them in photographs and stuff, and I've heard the newer ones are much better than the early ones. Ian's in the final stages of unpacking. Found some boxes from the early thousands with a bunch of 90s Warhammer goodness. Oh, can't beat a bit of free hobby here. Good evening to Lee Russ as well. How are you, mate? See if I can find that where it just jumped away there. Mountain Gremlin Games, good evening to you, sir. Hello to Simon Morton. Ian J, good evening, fella. Ortega S, it looks like it's going to be a good one. John Estel's in as well, working on some large terrain. Miniature Adventures, good evening. Kieran from Odd-Sided Dice podcast says he's sitting with pizza and beer. I think you're just rubbing it in now, mate, aren't you? Miniature Adventures is playing some Hayes Negan. Is that you, Clive? I'm just looking at that little logo there. It could be. I could be wrong. Jimmy G, good evening, Jimmy. How are you, mate? Ian says, I'm intrigued on GW pricing. Yeah, I'll be coming to that very soon, I promise. Just saying hello to a few people. Stu McTurk, he's done some washing up as well. The airbrushing's on. Jason said he find hand washing dishes to be calming and a time to think. It might have been you that mentioned it, mate. Somebody definitely mentioned it the other day, and I must admit, it definitely kind of, whilst I didn't really enjoy it, and we do have a dishwasher, it was just kind of a little bit of a therapeutic thing, I think. Lee Burns in as well, got some Blade Guard getting built tonight. Hopes everyone's well. Hello to Marco. Hello to Andrew Fairbanks as well, saying happy Labour Day. Smoking a brisket for the family, so I'll catch the stream later. And after tonight is one of those topics where tomorrow I will upload a kind of a condensed version of it as well. So if you can't stay for the full stream or you don't want to watch the whole stream, you want to get the salient points, they'll be up in a stream tomorrow. Paul M says, how do? Painting away at some Black Seas third rates tonight. I don't know much about Black Seas, mate. What do you think of it so far? And yeah, I'm sure in any second now, Arnold DeGans is just there. Donated €2 as well, saying paying it up. Thank you very much, mate. Always nice to see your name on the screen. I'm sure that'll pop up at some time, anytime in the next few seconds. So we've got there we go. I knew it was on its way. We've got a few in tonight. I've got my notes as ever. You know I'm always well prepared for these kind of topics. And like I say, I'm going to do what I did last time as well. So I'm going to put it across to the clean screen. Your name will be back very soon, Arnold. Don't you worry about that. And I need to click a few buttons here to make sure I kind of get this ready. Paul saying he loves the gameplay and the models, not so keen on the rigging. I've seen a lot of people say that kind of thing, mate. So, tonight's video about the pricing, or the secret to Games Workshop's pricing. And there's a lot of people have opinions on this. I'm sure some people understand sort of quite well why things are priced the way they are, but there's a lot of rumours, there's a lot of kind of people think they know the answer. So some of the reasons that's come up, what I've seen either today or in the chat here, or I've seen it elsewhere, is things like the cost to produce it costs more. So some models cost more because they cost more to produce. Some models cost more because their points in the game are more. So they almost, there's a link to pricing and points cost. Some people say that it depends how many you'll buy. So if it's a model you'll buy more of, they're a little bit cheaper. If you're only going to buy one of it, they're more expensive. And many people have said greed. That's that 1000% markup thing said before. Now, some of those definitely are factors, but they're not the full picture. So let's talk about materials and all of that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of things that go into producing a miniature for Games Workshop, and these things are relevant for other companies too, so please bear that in mind. But there is the cost of a concept artist who's going to kind of design the original sort of concept for it, for want of a better word. You've got to pay a sculptor, somebody to sculpt the model. There's going to be some kind of an engineer to basically to cut it into into the parts that will make up the sprue. That is almost it's a separate job. The companies that don't use a separate person tend to end up with the ones that have the mold lines in weird places and stuff. Games Workshop have kind of really got that down really well now. Steel molds need to be produced. You all know steel molds are very expensive for plastic miniatures. They need to be produced. They need to pay an artist to paint that model, so when they take photographs for the pack shots and for advertising and stuff, they've got all of that work done. There's a packaging guy to basically design the packaging and to kind of sort of make the cardboard box design, if you like. They've got to manufacture that packaging. They've got to manufacture the sprues. They've got somebody assembles all of this stuff. So somebody erects those cardboard boxes and packs those boxes with the instruction booklets and sprues. You've got the warehousing costs. These have all got to sit in a warehouse or somewhere before they go out. We've got marketing costs. Like Warhammer Community isn't free. It's a cost on the business. We've got shipping costs. They get shipped all over the world. And then there's a million different things as well that I won't go into all those details. Now, the cost of this is actually quite huge, and this could run up to about £100,000 before you even make a sprue. Like steel moulds are very, very expensive. We can be talking 50,000, 60,000 for a mould. The actual plastic material itself is pretty low, and in the grand scheme of things, it has very little to do with the cost of the models. So let's take a look at, let me get my screen on the right one. Let's take a look at Techless here. So Techless, as you can see, this is in Great British pounds. This is £105. Now that's what's prompted this conversation. This is the first single model I think we've had that has been over £100. There is a model, I think it's Archeon, is £100, but this is the first one that's gone past that barrier. And it's like £105 is a lot of money for one model. No matter how big it is, no matter how many points it is. I mean, people are saying it's about 600, 660 points. It's like a third of your army. It's kind of irrelevant, really. It's £105 for one model. Now, you start converting that, it's 130 euros, it's 170 US dollars, and it's 280 Australian dollars. Now, it says on the screen here, if I can, excuse me if I'm looking up as well, that's where my monitor is, so I can see it. It says here in the description that this set contains Techless and Selnor Spirit of Hajj, or Hajj, a single miniature supplied in 70 plastic components on one base, which is a 160mm round base. And I know people saying, oh, well, it's a 160mm base, it's huge, which is a fair point. It is a big base. However, if you go to the Warhammer page here and you filter it by all of the hero models, because these are essentially a similar model. There are models that basically just have that one. You can only use one of them in your army. They're the big kind of centerpiece leaders. And I have filtered it by highest price to lowest. And no surprise, Techless there is there at the top. Archeon there as well is at £100. But if I scroll down a bit further and keep going here, we will come to, if I can find her, have I gone too far there? Anyway, I've got another screen here. We'll come to Alariel, the Ever Queen, from what they're called again. You know what they're from. I can't find the name now. I can't find the name. I can't remember anywhere. From everybody's going to be telling me in the chat now. Anyway, yes, from this army, right? So she is £85. So by no means cheap. Sylvaneth, yes, everybody's just screaming at me there. She is by no means cheap. She's £85, but she is 20 quid cheaper than Techless. Now, again, in the description, it says that she comes with 79 components in total with a appropriately huge Citadel 160mm base. So she comes with roughly the same amount of components to build her. She comes on the same size base. And if you look here, you will see there are 2 sprues that make up this model. And I've counted the bits to make sure there are 79 bits on those 2 sprues. And if we go back to Techless, again, there are 2 sprues here, and I've counted these, and there are 70 parts on those sprues. So the sculpt, everything I've just talked about from a manufacturing point of view should, in theory, be completely equal for those 2 parts, for those 2 miniatures. So it's not materials, it's not sculpting, it's not time, it's not any of that kind of stuff. Let me go back to this screen here. So let's say, just for argument's sake, let's say it's £100,000, basically upfront costs before they've kind of even made a sprue or before it's even gone out of the door. Now, to pay back these costs, you also need to make a profit margin on these. Remember, Games Workshop has shareholders. It's all about profits and margins and everything else. You need to sell X amount of miniatures that you've made at X price. And this is where it starts to kind of come in now. So GW have an idea of how many of these Techless models they're likely to sell. For example, Marine unit troops. So if you're going to buy your standard kind of intercessors, you're going to sell lots of them. People will buy multiples of this box over the time of building an army. And they are a very popular kind of model. The fact that people paint lots of different chapters, there are multiple people buying these models. For a lot of people, this is the first model they ever buy just to give the kind of hobby a try. So they're going to sell lots of those. When it comes to a hero model for Age of Sigmar, it's going to sell a lot less. So the number of potential buyers for Techless is a lot lower and you'll likely probably only ever buy one of these things. Most people who do buy it will only ever buy one. And the most people that kind of like buy this will either be somebody who's a bit of a painter or a collector, and they just like the model and they want to have it in their collection, so they will have one. And the other people that will buy this will be people that play Lumineth, and they will buy one because you can only field one. It's a named character. You can't have multiples of it in your army, so you're only ever going to buy one of these models. So again, let's say this was £100,000. So they need to get, Games Workshop need to get a return on that investment of that £100,000. And basically they need to sell enough to cover that cost and to make some profit as well. So they have an idea of how many it'll sell because I think I've just read this in one twice there. They've got an idea of how many it's going to sell because essentially they have they know how many battle tomes have sold, they know how many of the Lumineth armies have sold, they know how many of the units are being sold, so they have a rough idea of how many of this particular Techless model is going to sell. So if that's the case, why is Techless, why is it more than Alariel? If that's the case, if all those things are equal, why is it £20 more? So like I said, they know roughly how many they're going to sell of this thing because of the sales of the battle tome and everything else. And maybe, just in this instance, because they've already sold, maybe the expectation is that it's a bit lower than they thought it would be. Maybe they know they need to put the price up to cover lower sales of this particular model. So if they want to recoup that £100,000, let's assume they sell to retailers for 50% of the list price. I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure that they sell them for more than that. And some retailers get a bigger discount because they have bigger stores or chains of stores. And some of those models will go through GW Direct as well. But for the purposes of kind of easy maths and stuff, let's assume they're selling it for to retailers for 50% of that price we see on the GW website there. So if the model was £85 retail, at RRP, selling to retailer, GW make £42.50, selling it at half price to them. They need to sell 2,353 units just to recoup their £100,000 cost. We then put that up to £105. They're selling it to retailers for £52.50. They now only need to sell 1,905. So instantly they've brought it down by 350 sort of less sales that they have to make. And this is really what it all comes down to. This is the secret of GW's pricing. It all comes down to the cost that they've invested in it, that they need to recoup, divided by the number of sales they're likely to make, and that gives them a return on investment. This whole thing is about a return on the amount they've invested. If it was just about kind of high volume stuff all the time, you would see more marine models, which is no doubt why we see so many of them. But we'd never see these big centerpiece models if they didn't come in at those high prices. They would just never sell enough of them to basically to cover that cost. And I know people will say, well, if they drop the price, more people would buy them. You'd need significantly more people to buy them to justify that drop in price. Like if you half the cost and you only sold double the amount, you're still just breaking even. You're not making sort of a lot of profit, which is what Games Workshop need to do because they're a public company. So if you add on to that the profit as well, what you end up with is basically happy shareholders. And that essentially really is that's kind of like the secret to what they do. It's all based, it's got nothing to do with basically the manufacturing cost. It probably costs the same to sculpt and manufacture 10 Marines and produce them. I mean, plastic is essentially the only difference. You maybe need one less die, potentially, who knows? But essentially, it's going to cost pretty much the same to make that Techless model as it was going to cost to make maybe 10 Marines. The difference is how many people will buy them, how many sales are they going to make. And that is essentially, that's the reason behind it. If you've got a model that is only going to sell one of it to a customer, unfortunately, the prices are going to be much higher. It's the reason tanks are higher and vehicles are higher. It's the reason that hero models are higher. It's the like named leaders. Anything that is a named leader, it's the reason that they're higher in price as well. It all comes down to that. So that's the reason. If you want to find out more and what people are saying about it, please come over and check out the live stream, and you can join in and have a look at the comments as well. So folks, that's the reason. Oh, that's the reason. I'm going to scroll back now a little bit and just catch up on some of these comments and see what people were saying. Richard Smith, good evening, mate. How are you doing? He says the pricing follows their game points, doesn't it? No, so as I said, it doesn't follow the game points. If a model costs 500 points in the game, it's going to be high, and people are not going to take many of them. But if you compare that to, say, knights, for example, knights, you're gonna field multiple knights in a game, and their points will still be high. If you're going to talk about one centerpiece named character model, you will only ever buy one. So it's kind of linked to the points being high, because those big models are going to have high points, but it's more linked to the fact that you'll only buy one of them. You're never going to buy two, you're never going to buy three, so it's not just linked to points. Bloggy saying happy Labour Day as well. Hello, Bloggy. Let me just click something off here as well while I remember. There we go. And get back to the right screen. Lord Novus is saying, wow, that's a lot of money. Yes, it is, mate. Robert Marshall, good evening, mate. Franticson as well, hello. Steve Ballinger says, it's mad. There's enough stuff out there to remodel your bespoke models already. GW have churned out so much plastic over the years that you could literally make your own bespoke model easily. One of the things that Games Workshop has sort of... one of the things that... Think about the size of Games Workshop. I appreciate it's not a huge company. People think it is. It's not a huge company. They're probably talking about 900 to 1,000 employees now. But the difference with what they have versus maybe somebody like Mantic or somebody like Battlefront or somebody like Warlord is a lot of the staff. A lot of those jobs I described before are all done in-house. So their painters are all in-house, their sculptors are all in-house, their concept artists are all in-house. The people that design their packaging are all in-house. Warlord might be a little bit different. But essentially, all those people are on a salary. They're not freelancers. They're not sort of outsourcing a freelance artist to come up with some concept stuff. They're not outsourcing to a sculptor. So essentially, like, once they've finished that model, that freelancer goes off and is doing other work for other people. That's not a cost that most companies then have to continue to pay. If they're not designing any new models, they don't have to pay that cost. If they're not launching anything new, they don't have to pay painters. Games Workshop have all of these people on their staff and on their books and are all on a salaried kind of wage. They have to keep them busy as well, let's not forget. Simon York saying it's $330 in New Zealand as well. Dave says 50k for a Corn Berserker steel mold. You're having a laugh. A Corn Berserker, I couldn't tell you, mate, but steel molds are very expensive. VGS says morning. Good morning to you, mate. Krabby saying it's nuts, really, but it's not the only aspect of this hobby that's a bit nuts. Yeah, there's an element of that, mate, isn't there? It's don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's an element of kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit as well, because they have to at some point. At some point, they will reach a point where people will not pay those prices anymore, but they haven't reached it yet. And we keep seeing it with certain things coming out. We see Forge World stuff. It's a much higher price. They're going to sell a lot less of those. It's one of the reasons why they're priced higher. But it's they must be at some point, because every year they're a company that has shareholders. Every year they have to see their profits going up. They need to know where's that point of no return, if you like. Where's that point that they just pay everybody off and they stop going. And I think unless customers, if customers feel really strongly about it and don't pay the prices, they'll have no choice but to bring it down. I'm not saying this is too expensive. Cost is purely down to personal opinion, to what your finances are, what you class as value. If you think £105 is good value because you're going to spend the next 6 months painting it, and kind of time spent on that model, versus the enjoyment you'll get versus the cost might be tiny in that respect. Cost is subjective, but it's almost that psychological barrier of breaking through £100 now. For a single model. I ain't saying that's a decent percent of your way to a 3D printer. It is, but then don't forget, somebody has to be paid for doing all of that hard work to sculpting. It's okay to see a 3D printer costs sort of 200 quid or something like that, but in the grand scheme of things, you're then going to have to buy a sculpt from somewhere. You're going to have to buy a file, and it's a pretty, whether you like it or not, it's an impressive piece of work. You might not like the style of it, you might not like the aesthetic of it, but it's an impressive piece of work. Everybody screaming Sylvaneth. Yeah, my mind went blank there. Hethwell says, hi Andy, hope all is good. Your piece of the world, just passing by to say cheers. Hello, mate. Glenn Griffin said they might put a cost up to match the new price eventually. I don't think they will, mate. I mean, there's as I showed before there's quite a few models. There's a couple, like there's Archeon at 100, which was the highest at that point. We've now got Techless at 105. It starts to drop down to kind of £85 after that, and then it comes down kind of 80, 75s. Randomly until it gets below 50, it's either around kind of £10 or a £5. There's no like 58, 50s or anything like that above £50. Krabby said, it's obvious you really enjoyed counting those sprue bits. I just wanted to be sure, mate. I didn't want somebody to go, well, actually, you get 4 sprues in that one, and you only get 2 in the other one. So I went and counted them to be sure, mate. That's my commitment to the cause there. Dear Sin, she's a wood elf on a beetle who commands woody bark elves. That's pricey. Now, these are beautiful models, don't get me wrong. I think they might not, like, as I said before, they might not be your style. But they're the kind of things that I can imagine people want to just buy to paint. Just if you like display pieces and things, they're the kind of stuff that you'll want. If you feel that you're up to the job of painting these big models, I think that's what puts a lot of people off. Paul says the issue isn't the production costs, it's whether the final asking price is reasonable for a single model. And the conclusion that people seem to be reaching it is that it probably isn't. And that's my point, really, mate. It's almost kind of it's almost a psychological thing. There are certain price points, like with for certain like items, that when they break that price point, people just go, "Oh, really?" Like a little while ago, Apple released the first ever smartphone that was over £1,000. People had been around the £800, £900 mark for a while. They released the first model that was over £1,000, and there was this point where people were like, "Hang on a second, are we really paying £1,000 for a mobile phone?" There's certain things you see it in, like kind of you see it in food and drink and everything else. There's a point if like, for example, my local pub is kind of like, it's £4.90 for a pint of what is it, Peroni. A pint of Peroni is £4.95. It's sometimes it might be, if they break the £5 mark, you might see people not paying them prices anymore. They might drink something different. But that point might be £5.50. It might be £6. Every product has this point where people just go, "Hang on a second, am I still comfortable paying this?" And for me, I think that it's almost breaking through that £100. It's almost that, hang on, it needs to be pretty special to be paying over £100 for it. Peter Nicholas is there saying, I've got the old model when she was a wood elf, £30 if I remember correctly. This is the thing, the characters themselves haven't gotten any bigger. What they've done is they've just surrounded them by a load of stuff. So the Ariel model is still just a normal kind of 28mm character on the back of a huge beetle, and Techless is still just a normal character on the back of a big kind of like winged animal thing. James Bray saying he's a shareholder, go buy Techless. See, that's exactly what I mean, mate. Good evening, Devs, as well. How are you doing? Dave saying, also forget that brick and mortar GW shops are sometimes run at a loss and act as advertising mostly, a bit like those tiny Nespresso shops in big cities. It's all essentially, GW shops are a marketing cost, really, and it's all about getting it in front of people. They don't advertise on TV, they don't advertise in magazines outside of their own. You'll not see a poster on like kind of like driving down the driving down the road. You'll not see a big kind of like poster on the boards. Their marketing costs are sunk into Warhammer community, and they're sunk into their shops as well. James is saying, spoilers everyone, they just charge whatever they think they can get away with. There is an element of that, mate. But yeah, but there's a mathematical equation in the background about how did they get to that point, and whether they stick another £5 or £10 onto it is maybe a little bit of a kind of, let's give it a try. But there is a kind of a point that they need to do it. Krabby saying painters will like this for sure. Yeah. Pomsy saying ask your parents for it, would be a risky move, I reckon. Yeah, I can imagine when it comes to like it's expensive. Like some of these models are not like entry level models. If you're just dipping your toe into 40k or AOS or something, paying 105 quid for a model is not really where you want to be starting. You might think it's 600 points of my army. I only have to buy X, Y, and Z, but it's a big chunk of money. Dave saying, I do admit the Illumineth are beautiful high fantasy miniatures with a hint of bovine. I wouldn't mind a few, but I'm waiting for the old world high elves. There's been quite a lot of flack about these online though as well. People don't seem to like them as much as some other releases. I think that the bovine side of it has put a few people off. The cow side, the big cow horns and stuff. And I think they haven't been as well kind of sort of, the community hasn't embraced them as much as they have done some previous armies. Like for example, if you take what were they called? The ones I painted, the bone guys, Ossiarch Bone Reapers. If you take them as an example, I think they were pretty much, it was like everybody was like blown away at just how good that range was and how good they were. I think these haven't been really, quite as well received. That's the word I was looking for. Frantic saying, well, there was a price hike recently. There was a price rise, but this is still more expensive than all of those things. And I've just shown you, going through some data and showing through the stuff on the screen there, that the material costs and everything else are irrelevant. Material costs might have gone up, wages have gone up and stuff like that. And of course they have to cover those costs. But there does come a point where, and when I'm talking about return on investment, there's a point where you pay back all of that initial investment that you've spent to get this thing to market. And then everything after that is just pretty much pure profit, because yes, you're still paying the wages, you've still got depreciation on machines, you've got depreciation on the mold itself. At some point it will kind of tire and you'll have to replace it, it'll wear and you'll have to replace it. But there's a period of time where you start making money at that point, but you need to sell enough models to make sure that happens. And as I said before, these big hero leader models, there's a limited market for them compared to some of the big sort of high mass produced stuff. Ian saying probably nostalgia. Techless has been important in the lore. Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think the whole Lumineth thing without Techless probably doesn't fly really. Peter says, could the COVID crisis account for it? Maybe it was harder to get it made with all the problems. I don't think so, mate. I mean, Games Workshop said they had a fantastic result over the kind of the shutdown and stuff. It was better than they expected. If that was the case, I think we'd start to see some other things creeping up in price. As an example, look at Indomitor's box set. What was it, 120, 125 quid? Do we really think that Indomitor's box with the rule book and all of those Necron models and all of those Space Marine models and all of the stuff that was in that box, do we really think that's only worth 20 quid more than the Techless model? That's where that whole thing breaks down. The difference is they sold those Indomitor's boxes like they were going out of fashion. Techless, I think you'll if you go to a shop, you'll see one of those on the shelf. They're not going to be selling those like sort of hand over fist. Christian saying there, we're talking money, put it to good use and help support the channel. Thank you very much. A little plug for the Patreon there. Least, whoops, that's just jumped as I was about to read it there. Let me find where that's gone. There's a lot of chat just powelled through there. Lee was just saying, what you're saying, Andy, assumes that we're looking to make the same margin on each model kit. Don't you think that some will be used to subsidise others? No, I'm not talking about making the same margin on each kit made, because margin is almost irrelevant, really. It's not like you say we make 20% margin or we make 10% margin. You will quite happily accept a lower margin on a product that you will sell lots of, because you'll make lots of money. But if you're only going to, let's just to make things really simple, if you're only going to send 10 models, if you're only going to sell 10 models, the margin needs to be huge, because you need to make it's money, it's cash that you need to make. The margin's almost irrelevant. So it's all about making profit. That's what it is. So no, I think every model has a different amount of has a different margin, probably, because it's all based upon how many they'll sell. And this is what I'm trying to say. The difference between the Ilarial model and the Techless model is probably down to that. They know they're going to sell less, but they still want to make like the same amount of money, if you like. They probably want to make more money, if you like. Shareholders are demanding more money, so that's why the price ends up rising. Phil Tolhurst is saying, I have to agree, there are only going to be so many people buying Lumineth Realm Lords. Exactly, mate. Steve Poulin says, good afternoon, evening, people. I love this community. Thank you very much, Stephen. Good to have you in. Red Rose Wargaming says, overall, I've been disappointed with Techless and the Lumineth in general. Just didn't do it for me. It's not particularly my taste either, to be fair, Anna. I know some people love it. Some people hate it. I always give GW props for that kind of stuff. That they are very polarizing in their designs, but they don't shy away from trying something a little bit different. This one for me was kind of a big miss. Even if this was half the price, I wouldn't be buying it. It's not really my kind of cup of tea, to be fair. Dave's saying the Lumineth is a demand side problem with the pricing. There's lower demand than, say, Stormcast Eternals. Yeah, exactly. And if there's lower demand, and then they're going to release a model that is only really relevant to those army players where it has a lower demand. I mean, I think the rules for this model are absolutely kind of filth. I think she basically casts 4 spells, like, without even rolling the dice. She just auto casts them. So that the model, like the rules for this model, have been bumped up to kind of 11 as well, because I think that's another way they sell these. That's how they try and shift these things. It's almost part of the marketing, if you like. Let's give this really expensive model really good rules, and that'll help shift a few as well. Dirk saying, so basically because a miniature is but ugly, it will be sold less and therefore more expensive. Not to do with the looks of it, mate. Looks are subjective, but if it sells less because it's a model that you will only ever field one in your army, then it pushes the price up. It's the reason that like things like sort of big tanks, big sort of big vehicles are more expensive. It's the reason the big beasts and stuff are more expensive. It's the reason like even small kind of named character models are kind of like they're like 25-30 quid for one single miniature versus a box of like 10 the same size that you might pay sort of, I don't know, you might pay sort of 35 quid for. Paul saying, so here's a question. If we assume it costs 100k to produce, they have to sell 1,000 at full RRP to at least break even. Does anyone think that GW are only going to sell 1,000 units? I use them numbers, mate, purely just as a basis, just to illustrate the point. There is still a break even point. There is still the point where they want to kind of cover their costs, but they also want to make more. They also want to make profit. They want to make money on it. And if they know they're going to sell less from the off, like for example, if they've on launch weekend, if they sold, let's use random numbers. Let's say they sold 40,000 Ossiarch Bone Reaper codexes, and let's say that same weekend for the Lumineth release they only sold 10,000. The chances are they're going to sell a quarter of the techless models of what they sold of the Illyrial models, and that's kind of what I mean. I'm sure that's not the number. I'm just using them to illustrate the point that basically they push the price up to make sure that they only need to sell less models to still maintain the amount of profit that they want to make. Just Kev says, never understood folk who complain about GW prices. It's like walking into a Ferrari showroom and moaning they are too expensive. GW are the Ferrari of miniatures in an already expensive hobby. It's not about moaning about it. As I said before, mate, it's pricing is really subjective. If you don't have a job, if you don't have any spare cash, everything from kind of Games Workshop is expensive for what it is. If you have a high flying job, if you work on Wall Street and you happen to be a Games Workshop playing banker, money's probably not an issue. So the cost of something is really subjective to how you are in your own financial situation. What you class as good value versus what somebody else's classes as good value are completely different. So it's not a case of moaning about the price. It's the fact that they reach a point where it starts to get to a point where you think, for me personally, I think £105 is a lot of money for one single model. For other people, they might be just saying, well, when it got to 55 quid, I thought it was too expensive. Some people will keep buying them till they're 250 quid each. It's all relative, mate. Big Beto says, can I just say your camera is so good? Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, it's a Canon 250D with a decent lens on it, basically, mate, through a capture card. Crabby says, I'm still buying the fancy pants Space Marine units they put out the next possible opportunity. Such is life. Somebody said to me, actually, when they saw this was £105, they said this has got them worried about the Silent King for Necrons. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Silent King is less than 105, knowing how many Necron players there are out there now since the Indomitus box shop dropped. Now, it might be if sales for Techless go well, they might think, actually, we can get away with £105, even though we don't need to sell it at £105 to make the profit that we want. It'll be interesting to see how much that model is. Because as we know, it's nothing to do with the size that dictates the price. It's got nothing to do with it. Again, it's another model that will be a very specialist model. It'll be a high points cost. You'll only ever buy one. It'll only be for painters, people that play Necrons. And not all of them will buy it either. So it'll be interesting to see what price that comes in at. Busey says maybe they should charge £1 a point across the range. Well, that would make it 600 points, mate. £600. Would you pay that for it? James says, greetings all. I almost forgot about the chat with the holiday. I forget the holidays in different countries and that. You painted some ultramarines. And Dave saying, yeah, GW don't employ many contractors. Yeah, pretty much everything they do is all in-house. James saying, I really don't like the new Techless. I don't mind the new Lumineth. Where's my repeater bolt thrower though? Yeah, I'm not a fan of... I've never really been a fan of elves, really. It's not really my style, so... Jimmy G says, at this price, how many will make their way to the game table? Most, I reckon, will end up in a collector's cabinet, and that's okay. The hobby isn't just about what goes on the table. It's the point that I made a few weeks ago, mate, is when I was talking about competitive gaming. Games Workshop are very much, first and foremost, a model company. They will quite happily bring out a more expensive model, knowing that there is call from the community, from the people that buy their products, for those kind of high-ticket priced kind of sort of overly complex models, if you like, the ones that are like an absolute nightmare to paint because they've got so many bits on them. Most other companies would not release that kind of thing, not at all. Federico, hello there. He says, why are they changing the cost of their business model on us? I don't think they are, mate. I don't think their business model's ever changed. I think it's always been like this. I don't think it's suddenly changed recently. Phil says, I have to disagree. 10 Marines will be easier to design and produce due to the fact they've already designed loads in the past. Yeah, I agree, mate. They probably will be cheaper to design and stuff, but it's not going to be significantly less expensive. They still have to buy those molds. The molds are the big chunk of the pricing. They still have to buy those things. They still have to get box designers. They still have to get artists to paint them. They still have to get the engineers that basically cut them up to make them into a sprue. All those things need to be done. All you're really saving some time on maybe is on the actual sculpting because they're using a frame that already exists. But everything else down the line is still exactly the same. You still have to kind of erect the boxes and pack them up. You still need warehousing. You still need shipping. All of those things still need to happen. Paul says, I have a feeling that we're approaching the people won't pay it with £105 for the Techless model. It won't be a hard stop. It'll be a gradual drop off. Oh, 100%, mate. It won't just overnight just like tip off. It'll be a gradual. But I think what we'll see is if the sales for this particular model don't meet Games Workshop's expectations, I don't think we'll see any more models at £105, for example. And I think part of what they're doing is that they're testing the water with each of these different things. Maybe this is a little bit of just kind of pushing the boundaries to see if people will pay it. Maybe it's because they didn't sell as many Lumineth things as they did other armies, for example. But I think there's a point where they'll be pushing the boundary to decide, have we reached that kind of like, I ain't paying that anymore stuff. So yeah, I don't disagree with you, mate. Dave saying the thing with Forge World is that it's false economy. You pay more money for very exclusive miniature, which has more of a chance of getting to put it in next year's chapter approved. I think a lot of the Forge World stuff, mate, it's more for collectors and stuff. It's very much just people who are absolutely kind of in love with the lore and the background, and they just want one of those very different models. They might want to bring it to the table, look what I've got, look what nobody else has got kind of thing. They might just want to sit them on their shelf. I think the fact that they lose their points or whatever it is from chapter approved is almost irrelevant for a lot of the people that buy Forge World stuff. Federico saying 3D printers will shortly kill the business. I don't think so, mate. I don't think so. I think 3D printers are not, they're still not plug and play. Like if you could print out a miniature, like you can print out like a photograph, for example. So if you're printing a photograph on a home printer, like a paper printer, obviously, if it was that easy, you just press a button and there it is. There's no cleanup, there's no messing on. All you need to do is buy printer ink. If it was the same for a printer, be that resin or plastic, if all I had to do was kind of buy a reel of plastic and just feed it in and then just print away till it runs out, then I think maybe you're getting to that realm. But printers, both resin and plastic, are still not plug and play enough yet. There's still all of this putting in the supports. They're still kind of making sure that it fits on the bed and getting your bed level and setting it up, cleaning it all down afterwards, all those kind of things. Look at how many people are put off using an airbrush because they don't like the clean down afterwards. I think 3D printing is really ramping up, but I think it's still a long way off before those companies start to become too scared of that kind of thing. John says, I really wanted a conspiracy answer, not something rational and well argued. We all know it's expensive because something that big, they have to train rabbits to gnaw the model into shape. To be honest with you, this is always the point about these kind of things. The one I did about why do they only have limited editions of their box sets was exactly the same. People like to build up these kind of conspiracy theories, but the truth sadly isn't as interesting as they want it to be. And this is the truth for this as well. It is based upon just economics. They're going to sell less of them. They still want to make money on them, so they put the price up. It's really as simple as that, but there's a few more factors in the background to reach that point that you need to understand, really. Peter saying, I for one will pay £100 for a centrepiece model, but will just be very selective on which one I get. Having said that, I'm just starting 40k Knights Army. I think, to be honest, mate, I think you're right. A lot of people will pay a little bit more for a centrepiece model. But that's my point. I think £105 is getting to the point where you just go, oh, I'm not so sure. And I know most people will probably get 20% discount and it brings it back down under £100. And I think Games Workshop know that as well, because it makes absolutely no difference to their profits, because it's basically cutting into the retailers' margins. And I think they know that. I think they know that people factor in a discount. I think that's just the way they are. Federico said, but in 10 years, GW's business is going to be books and maybe 3D models. They are trying to profit now. There's no way Games Workshop's model is going to be books and 3D models, mate. I completely disagree. I don't think you'll ever get to a point, not in my lifetime of playing this game anyway, where Games Workshop just starts selling 3D files that you then don't need to go back and buy any more models for. I think they cater to a hobbyist who just wants to be able to go and buy a model, build it and paint it. They're not catering, and I don't think, like, 3D printers can replicate lots of things, and they haven't killed off any of those industries yet, have they? Phil saying, aren't Knights also £105? I'm not sure. Maybe the particularly big ones where you can maybe only field one of them. I'm not sure, but I think certainly from an AOS point of view, it's certainly the first model. Hoot Marut says the price of metal casting was a lot higher than the plastic casting. They have no need to raise the prices that much. It's got nothing to do with like as I mentioned before when I went through all of the pricing and stuff. It's got little to do really with the actual with the casting and stuff like that and the actual manufacturing process. There's a point where they need to cover their costs, but everything after that is profit. It's all down to the fact that they're going to sell less of them because one, you'll only need one, and two, it's probably limited to a very small portion of the community. Very few people will play Lumineth at this point in time, so therefore very few people, even from that Lumineth pool if you like, will be buying that particular model. New Gamer says, what about the China World stuff, dropping prices to combat that special on the old sculpts that have more than made their R&D back? They have made their R&D back, mate, but they still have to keep replacing those molds at some point, because they do wear out. So there is still a cost in place to filling them back up again. I've got no ideas, mate, about why they put the price of some of them all things up. Maybe they put them up because actually sales have, and this might sound counterintuitive, but sales have dropped off to the point where they're not making the profit on those things anymore. And people always say, drop the price, you'll sell more. The problem is when you drop the price, you need to sell a hell of a lot more to make up for where you were when you were already selling less. it's about profit. It's not always about the amount you sell. It's about how much money you make on what you're selling. Yeah, Phil's saying there, I think you're overestimating how many people get 3D printers. Yeah, I agree, mate. I think it's that. Tiberius says, I've been banging on about counting sprues for years and nobody believes me. It makes no difference, mate. How many sprues there are in a pack, it's almost irrelevant. Look how much plastic was in the Kill Team starter box or the Warcry starter box. And they were both cheaper than this Techless model. Pomsy saying, I think their 3D printers can print the high detail as GW and are easy to use and cheap is some way off. Yeah, that's definitely the thing, mate. It's at the point where it is really, really simple. Like if you could have a resin printer and you didn't have to clean it down, you didn't have to kind of wash, you didn't have to clean it all down once you've printed it, you didn't have to UV cure it, all those kind of stuff. If you could just print something, pick it off and it's done, you can go away and use it. I think at that point it starts to challenge. But there's a few too many steps in there. People like convenience. They like it to be easy. The people that like 3D printing enjoy 3D printing. And that is almost a hobby in itself. That they enjoy doing that kind of stuff. Skullmunch, good evening, mate. He says, evening all. I know it's a bit different, but don't show people the price of Smaug the Dragon from Middle Earth. Yeah, I mean, again, that's an absolute fortune. It is a big model. It looks impressive. I've actually seen one in the flesh. Somebody sitting, putting it together and stuff. But again, it's a limited number of those that they're ever going to sell, because not many people will pay that kind of high price anyway. If it was going to be, let's just say it was going to be 200 quid, you might as well put it up at 250, because the people that were going to pay 200 will probably still pay 250. That's what kind of happens when you get to those kind of numbers. Tiberius says, and there's still no recorder on that shelf. I don't have a recorder, mate. Tony says, I'm not sure how many painty types would buy the Techless Mini. It's a bit of patchwork style with no cohesion. Archeon is a beautiful Mini. Techless looks like it's done by 3 people and cobbled together. Again, mate, I think it's just it's just personal taste, isn't it? Like I think it's well done. It's just not my taste, really. So when it's something I don't like, you've sometimes just got to step back from it and just say, look, because I don't like it, doesn't mean nobody else likes it. And when you look online, you will just hear from all of the folks who also don't like it. You'll get very few people actually singing the praises, really. Krabby says, if this model told me the weather or I could link it to my car to play Spotify, I might consider it. Even at 105 quid, mate, I wouldn't. Fiji says, Peroni, the European VB. Lord Nova says, I think the next topic is going to be on 3D printers based off the chat tonight. I won't be talking about 3D printers, mate, unless I buy one myself. And I'm not at that stage yet. Busey saying £4.90. What can I say, mate? It's a bit of a poser's pub. Paul says there's a definite psychological element to it, but to be honest, my eyebrows were definitely raised when I saw models at £85. I agree with you, mate. That's exactly what I'm saying. I think everybody has a different limit in there. Even if you earn a decent wage and you've got a good job, a lot of people within the hobby are kind of cash rich, time poor, if you like. It doesn't mean they're rich. It just means that they have like disposable income, but don't have a lot of time on their hands because they're working a lot, for example, or they've got families. But I think everybody has that point where you just suddenly go like, oh. I mean, how many times have you heard people saying, if cigarettes ever get to X pounds per pack, I'm quitting, I'm not paying any more for it. It's exactly the same kind of thing. Paul says, I paid 25 pence for my first Citadel model. I still have him. It was 1986 though. Yeah, that's the thing, innit? I think inflation and stuff has gone a bit out the window. I mean, the other side of it is, I do cut GW some leeway for being a little bit more expensive than other companies anyway, because they are a UK-based company. The manufacturing is in the UK. They pay a higher wage. If you're getting something manufactured in China, the production costs are a lot lower than they are if you produce it in the UK, for example. So there's an element of actually I cut them some slack for that, really. I'm not suggesting that it makes it more like that I'll suddenly pay sort of £105 for a model. But I do understand that there is a portion within their pricing structure that's going to be more expensive than a company that kind of gets all their stuff made out in China. Something else I was going to talk about as well was what you'll find is other companies who tend to make those big kind of maybe centerpiece models tend to be like you'll only field one of them. They tend to be resin. and they tend to be produced in-house, and they'll be produced to demand. So they're not having to kind of like to make a huge batch of them. You all know that making a resin model is much cheaper up front to make the mold, but they're more expensive per individual model to make because the cost of resin is more expensive. It's not as fast production, so you have to spin them. You might only be able to make maybe 2 or 3 an hour or something like that because they're in multiple parts and stuff. So that's what pushes the price of those things up. But one of the reasons that they're not charging kind of £105 a model, if you like, if you look at places like Atlantis Miniatures and stuff who do really kind of high quality, just like display minis, really, they're all resin, and they're probably almost made to order. They won't have a huge warehouse full of stuff. They haven't got a huge staff of stuff. Games Workshop doing those big centerpiece models in plastic is a huge part of why those models are so expensive. Krabby says, does anyone in the chat play this army? Interested if someone who plays this army will be buying it. That's a good point, that, mate. Does anybody play Lumineth? Does anybody play AOS, for example? Well, Hung and Dong says the AOS stuff is technically very impressive, but over-designed to the point of being annoying and impractical. So, I don't disagree to an extent. I think some of the models become so big they're a nightmare to transport and stuff. But then I guess they probably also factor in some of their audience. I mean, it's all right saying they're a nightmare to transport. I can't remember the last time I really transported models about. Most of my games are like kind of played at my house or played at my mate's house, where I'll just put it into a box and put it in the boot of the car, and it's fine. It's not like I've got to carry it on the plane anywhere. I haven't got to get like 3 buses to go and like on public transport to go and play a game somewhere. So I think that the people that have to transport these around on a regular basis are probably few and far between. Pomsy said, I'd like to hear from regular competitive players to see if they think it's worth the cash. This is the problem, mate. What they'll do is they'll bump up the ability of this model. As I said before, I think this model can auto cast 4 spells, and they cast on a 10 plus, which means for those that don't play AOS, you can try and dispel your opponent's spells, but to dispel them you'll need to roll 2 dice and get above a 10. So it's not easy to dispel them spells, and when they're auto casting, they're going to be powerful spells on a 10 plus. That's the kind of stuff that people say, I don't care how much it costs, I'm having one of them in my army. And that's what happens. The problem is 6 months down the line, when that initial wave's all bought them, and then he gets nerfed, and it's like, oh, you can't cast 4 spells anymore, you can only cast 1 now. And all of us, or the points cost goes up, or something else kind of happens. It doesn't synergize quite as well as it used to because people have found loads of loopholes. That's the problem. That's the problem, yeah. Skull Munch says we could all melt it down and try sculpting our own. Steve says there's a good reason GW share prices continue to rise. The product is high quality. It's also the reason people buy it. It's such high price. After all, Rolls and a Mini are both cars. Yeah, exactly, mate. That's it. It hasn't reached the point where people are starting to turn their back on it in general. I would love to see kind of sales numbers for different armies and different models and bits and pieces. Like, is there a particular model that just doesn't sell anymore, even though it's still on their site? But it's right. If like, some people just have more money. Some people just want to pay for something that looks flashy that nobody else has got. It's just kind of human nature, really. VJ says, yeah, the cow elf thing doesn't really work for me. Yeah, me either, mate. Peter says, if I melt down all my old figures, the conflagration, where did that one go? That was, I don't even know where that went now. I'm just going to have to dive in because it just disappeared. I'll just dive in here. Paul says, on the pricing front, I've a reasonably well-paying job. I have a decent amount of disposable income. I could probably afford to buy a £105 model. The question is, it's would. Yeah, and that's the point. That's the tipping point then. It's not even about I can't afford it anymore. It's I can afford it, but I'm still not paying it. That's exactly it, mate. Krabby says, off topic, but do you see the chat randomised or in order? It comes in order for me, mate. So there's a timestamp against each of the different chats, and I can see them. Basically, it just comes in time, mate. Fiji says, it depends if you have it set to top chat or live chat. Exactly, mate. I'm on live chat. James says, I think generally Andy tries to have it on live chat, but sometimes on top chat. Yeah, it's no. It's I'm reading it on live chat, mate. I'm if I'm missing anything, I don't know why, but I'm literally going through them in order. Christian sharing a link there to the Facebook group as well. Thank you, Christian. Dave says depreciate as in withdraw official support for. That was my Forge World comment. I don't think depreciate's the right word, mate. Depreciate is basically when something is worth less and less over time, like a car, for example. I think it's more about it just they lose support for it, don't they? Or the game basically it's no longer a part of the game. Pomsy said maybe £100 just isn't as much money as we think it is these days in relative terms. An authentic football shirt is £100. It might be in Spain, mate. It's not over here. There's still like 40 odd quid a football shirt here. William Jones says a weird wrinkle within Forge World is the Middle Earth stuff. They are the only GW Alliance supply for some of the army troop types. Otherwise, yeah, modelers, collectors niche. Yeah, exactly. Just going back to what you said there, Palmsy, about football shirts. So if you take video games as a good example, when I was kind of 17, 18, a Mega Drive, Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis, for those of you over in the States, a cartridge was 40 quid. Like these days, games are still sort of like 40, 50 quid. They haven't gone up that much. But the reason they haven't gone up that much is because they are selling sort of so much more of it. They are selling many, many times more computer games now than they ever did when I first started playing, or when I was playing at like 17 or whatever. Like I saw a stat the other day that said the computer games industry now has a higher turnover than the movie and the music industry combined. I couldn't believe that. If you don't believe me, it's on the Netflix documentary, which is I forget what it's called now. There's a new Netflix documentary about video games. It's really, really good. It's like a multi-part series. Check it out. I'm sure they talk about that in the first episode. Dave's saying that I'm not paying £100 for any mini when I could get an Imperial Knight for 80 quid. There's my point, mate. There's my point. Peter saying don't buy a Lariel footy shirt. Super Punker Man says again, until we have Star Trek replicators, people like me will still have jobs. Paul saying about 3D printers, I have two. FDM can't do miniatures, but the resin printer is absolutely amazing, provided you like messing about with toxic waste. That's my point, mate, as well. It's just FDMs are great for kind of big terrain pieces and stuff that you're not too worried about the quality of. The quality of resin printers now are fantastic, but they're messy buggers. You have to mess about with them. You've got to put the supports in them. It's not just a case of I'll have that miniature, please. Click, print, take it off, go and paint it. There's a lot more steps in that. James is saying 100 quid is 2 new video games. If you're into the army, then that's not too bad, especially if you love painting and playing. Yeah, and this is what I said before, mate. It's all to do with personal value and basically how much will I get out of that investment in money, if you like. Vijay says it's really just economics. Mate, some people still think trickle-down works. Plenty of people can't grasp basic economics. So I think some people, when it comes to miniature gaming, though, I think that they think that Games Workshop should just drop the prices and make it accessible for everybody. They are a publicly owned company. They're never going to do that. No company just makes it like, I'm just going to sit back here. I'm not going to make any profit. I'm just going to make... This is like... There's no miniatures company that are not-for-profit businesses. If they are, then they're failing and they're going to go bust anytime soon. Daisy and I use resin 3D print. It's amazing. Can do up to 0.05 mil. Yeah, they're fantastic, mate, but you have to admit there's more steps than just pressing print and taking it off and being usable. Steve says, if what you're saying is correct, which I'm sure it is, then the start collecting sets could be good value. Yeah, I mean, the start collecting sets are potentially... They maybe accept a slightly smaller margin on those kind of things. One, because they probably sell well, and two, because they want to get people hooked into a new army. For example, there'll be a Lumineth start collecting at some point, and if you buy into that, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, well, now I'm going to buy Techless, I'm going to buy that big one. I think they're almost like a little hook. Games Workshop don't discount their stuff. They never do sales. The start collecting boxes and any intro box that comes out tend to be the best value. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to tempt you into buying more stuff with that. James says 126 people watching and only 46 likes. Sort it out, ladies and gents. I can't even see them numbers, mate. I can see about 119 at the minute according to mine. VGC's got a 3D printer and it's a full silicon molding and resin casting pressure vacuum setup. I still buy minis. Ease of access and effort counts for a lot. I completely agree, mate. I think there will be a point in the future where it becomes like really simple. Like, for example, when you used to kind of take your film to get developed to the shop, you could develop them at home if you want. If you've got a dark room and all of the kind of developing stuff, you could develop your own. Photographs. But most people just took them films into like a chemist or a photograph place and got them developed and got their photos back, and they paid for that privilege. Then when basically sort of photo printers became cheap enough, a lot of people just started printing off their photos. And then you get things like digital photo frames and people just don't even print off photos anymore generally. That's an evolution, but I think that point I was talking about with developing your own photos versus just going and getting them developed is almost where we are with 3D printers versus just going buying miniatures. The people that used to develop their own photos, photography was a hobby to them, and I think it's the same thing when it comes to 3D printing. Ian says, I think there may be a place for a 3D printed wargame company. Wargame first players, I think, will move to a printed model, and hobby first players will stick with the traditional one. I still don't think so, mate. I think if people are war gamers, they just want ease of access. They just want to pick up a miniature, and as long as the miniatures stay at that price where it's still kind of sustainable, I can't see it kind of taking over anytime soon. The problem is, and we talked about this a little while ago. I can't remember, it was a Wednesday night we did this one. The problem is the companies that sell the STL files, they'll sell you that STL file, and then what tends to happen is that person shares it with their mate, and then that person shares it with their mate, or somebody posts it online, and you can get loads of free files everywhere. The copyright kind of theft, if you like, of STL files is huge. So that's why I can never see Games Workshop doing that. They won't be able to sell you a file that only you can use. Like, for example, if they sold let's just say a Techless STL file for 50 quid, how many people would share that with their mates? Like, how many people would share that around their local club so everybody's got one? That's exactly what happens with 3D printing. Nikki there. Hello, Nikki. Says 3D printing is too inconvenient for 90% of people. It's a hobby in itself. I agree. James says, Space Marines and McDonald's, these characters are a steak dinner. They might be a steak dinner in price, mate, but if you don't like the look of them, maybe you're a vegetarian, eh? Pomsey's saying there, sometimes a higher price makes something more desirable too. There is that, mate, but there is also a tipping point as well where you say, I don't care. I need to have a lot more money. Like, for example, let's talk about a Rolex watch, for example. Let's say a Rolex watch is 20 grand. I'd quite like one, but even if I had 20 grand, I don't think I'd go out and buy one. Like, like my Apple Watch tells the time just the same. Do you know what I mean? Hoomer Root says, Paul, I have to agree with you that resin is great format with more industry using it. Peronial printers will improve slowly and make it drop prices or go out of business. I'm not sure it's going to make people drop their prices, mate. Not until resin printing becomes much, much easier to do and more convenient. I am saying roughly half the mini gamers I know in town run printers. I can probably count on one hand the amount of people that I know that sort of run resin. In fact, I don't know anybody that has a printer, a resin printer, and still doesn't buy miniatures. I don't know anybody. If you're in the chat now, if you're somebody I know and you have a printer and you still don't buy any miniatures, tell me, because I don't think it is. Bobby Clark says, is Games Workshop's pricing secret the same in other miniature companies, you think? I think there's an element of it is the same, mate. But as I said before, I think some companies use Kickstarter to basically almost as a pre-order system to pay off that initial cost, and then basically what they're doing after that is they're just maintaining kind of they're just making profit after that, if you like. So that's almost like they take the risk out of that. Games Workshop take that initial risk because they might have a good idea of how many they're going to sell, but they could make something that is absolutely awful and everybody hates it and nobody buys it. It's never happened yet, but it could. I think, like as I said before, with the big centerpiece models or the one-off miniatures, that they tend to make them in resin. They tend not to go plastic. Look what Mantic have done recently with the Walking Dead stuff. So all of the Walking Dead range was plastic, and it was all kickstarted and funded through Kickstarter. Anything that's come out that wasn't in the Kickstarter has been resin. And that's because they're making them in-house now. They're not kind of sending them out to China or wherever, because to make a mold for plastic models is hugely expensive, and you need to sell a lot of them to recoup them costs. Games Workshop are on a different level because they sell things probably tenfold of anybody else, maybe 20 times fold. But most other companies are either making metal models. Look at like Infinity, look at Privateer Press. Used to do a lot of metal stuff. I think they do a lot of like bits of resin and stuff now. Malifaux is probably a good example. They moved away from metal into plastics, but they tend not to. They don't release a lot of stuff, if you like. What was the other one I was thinking of? War Cradle. Majority of, I think, all of their Wild West Exodus stuff now is all resin. So it kind of, even the big stuff, it kind of takes away. Plastic is only worth it if you know you are going to sell lots and lots of products. If you're not, resin is pretty much the way forward, or metal for some companies. Jigabachi 73 says there's a reason companies like Tamiya sell 30-year-old kits. The molds are very expensive. Yeah. Ian says far easier to print a model than assemble one. No risks of X-Acto blade injury either. I don't think it's far easier to print a model than assemble one, mate. Not at all. You're messing about with resin, which is toxic. It's messy. You need to have you need to have ISO to clean it and stuff. You need to be able to, you need to have it somewhere to UV cure it. There's a lot more processes, and some people get a lot of enjoyment from building them, and that's the point. Part of the hobby is building the kits, kit bashing bits and pieces and that kind of stuff. I don't think kit bashing with resin stuff is quite so easy, really. Marco was saying there, can't wait to see the price of the Giants. Yeah, I think we're going to see an announcement this weekend coming, mate, so it'll be interesting to see that. I think the difference with the Giants is you can field multiple Giants in your army, so I don't think they go, like, if they put them 105 quid each, people will not play a Giant army because they're not going to spend 100 quid every time they want one of their models. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're like 50 quid, something like that, 50, 60 quid. James Bray saying, holy Lord, I'm not seeing that Smaug model before, £340. Yeah, that's my point, mate. I think it's almost like when you're getting up to that price, they can almost just price it for whatever they want, because the only people that'll pay that kind of money would pay it anyway. Tiberius saying it's a collector's item, being the very last model the Perrys did. Nicky said, I doubt they will ever sell 3D files unless scanning technology becomes more widespread and people are able to essentially clone models. Yeah, as I said before as well, basically the copyright infringement of just basically people share. It'll get to a point where models will become just so commonplace online. Look how easy it is to pick up kind of codexes online and stuff like that. People get digital versions of them and just get them shared about. It's probably one of the reasons they're putting their digital codexes into an app now to stop that kind of stuff. Peter says those £100 kits, yes, molds take time to change and that costs money. When the same product is 3 years old and a lot of people already have that, you might sell 5 kits a week. Yeah. Oh, sorry, about dropping the price. When a product has been around for a while, when you first release it, and just an example, sell 100 kits a week. That's my point, mate, really, is they still want to make profit from them, don't they? They still want to make money. So there's no point in dropping the price when you're not selling many of them, because if you halved your price and you sold twice as many, you're still making the same amount of money. But you have to sell more to make more profit, if you like a lot more. Palmsy saying there, talking of Tamiya, they've got a $500 RC car coming. I don't know how much RC cars come at a cost. I always assumed they were expensive anyway. Peter saying you have to divide set of costs over 5 kits, so instead of getting cheaper, they get more expensive. This is probably offset by the fact they've recouped development costs. Yeah. Krabby says, don't let Andy fool you. He's a millionaire YouTuber nowadays. Wipes his arse on £20 notes. I wish, mate. I wish. Peter says his first road car cost less than 100 quid. My first car was £400, mate. Paul says, despite anything I said tonight, I have no complaint about the price of the Techless model. GW can charge whatever they like. I personally don't think it's a justifiable expense. Yeah, I agree, mate. I agree. Pomsy saying, not sure about that, mate. He's had the same bottle of whiskey on that shelf for the last year. It's full of tea now, mate. Anyway, I was saying before, I've had a healthy week. I've not had a drop of booze for a week. I've eaten really healthy. I've been walking every day. I went for a run today. I had a little run yesterday. I've lost, how much have I lost? I've lost about £8 in weight in the last week as well. Things are going well. Phil saying, I'm just starting to build a corn army for AOS. Hopefully I'll find a game somewhere. Fingers crossed, mate. Jason said, I love the huge AOS minis. I like them, mate. I like big minis. It's nice to have that thing where you just think, I'm not just trying to like base coat and wash this one. I'm going to spend a bit of time on it and stuff. It's more of a hobby in itself just to sit and paint those kind of things. There's been a few of those big models I've thought about just buying just to have a nice little project of something just to paint. But at that price, I ain't so sure. Oops, that's just jumped again. I'm just going to dive back in because I can't find that one where it was. Mark was saying, if you want to play tournaments, you still need proper GW products. 3D printed minis won't be acceptable. Only if you want to play at Games Workshop tournaments. That's the difference. If you're playing at like a local club or something like that, or like maybe even if you're playing in a shop, the shop will want you to play with proper minis because that's what makes them sell. But if you're just playing like down a local club or a church hall or something, most clubs are pretty much, you can just kind of play with what you want. Dave saying, you need the outer circle from YouTube on this show to go on a rant about Australian Warhammer prices. I think the problem is, mate, it's pretty straightforward. Games Workshop just whack the price up to cover any fluctuations in exchange rates, basically any global demand fluctuations, and yeah, they show no signs at all. Is it fair? Not at all. Have they ever changed it? Nah, it's always been miles out. Jeffrey's saying it's basically a niche market within a niche market. They have the high dollar figures to determine how much will sell and what they need to produce. Yeah, quite possibly, mate. Dirk saying STL files of a good design single miniature costs about €5 to €8. Compare that to prices of miniatures you can buy from hassle-free freebooters, etc. Paul said, I don't plan on stopping buying miniatures even though I have a 3D printer. There are some ranges I absolutely adore. Looking at you, Infinity. Infinity minis are beautiful. They really are really nice. I love them as well, mate. I don't know whether you've ever seen them, but across this wall here I've got like 9 sort of big framed pictures of all of Infinity stuff because I just love that aesthetic. Ian says, so I do buy both STLs and minis, but I buy far less minis now and participate in more subs for games and STLs, but I'm bringing to favour print due to the flexibility of the print the armies I want. So let me take it the other way then. So where do you play your games? Do you play your games at home? Do you play in a local store? How does the store owner feel about you playing with resin 3D printed minis that you've printed yourself? Where do these prints come from? Like what kind of game do you play? Because if I was a store owner, I wouldn't want people bringing like sort of resin printed minis into the store because they're not keeping the store open. They're not supporting the business in that respect. Jeffrey says, with starter sets like Warcry, they know how much they can make off it and they limit. Whoops. And they... Oh, where was that one? I was wanting to read that one about Warcry. I want to find that one now because it was a good comment. I will find it, folks. Don't stick with me. Stick with me. I'm going to find that comment. Where was it? God, I don't even know where that comment's gone from now. It's disappeared completely. If people want to play a Techless, what was that one? I must have just jumped in somewhere else. I'll just jump in. Scott says, evening all, what have I missed? As YouTube didn't send me the notification. You were in earlier on, mate. Pomsy saying, the Arsenal Pro shirt is 100 quid. I checked on their website. I know it's not the same. So, this is different then. So this is them having two different standards of football shirts these days, because NFL shirts are exactly the same as well. There's three different kinds of NFL shirts. Like the cheapest ones are like 70 quid or something like that. You can buy one for 200 quid. And Paul's saying their football shirts are absolutely not 40 quid. Man City just released their new third strip in the official replica shirt in the adult size of 110 quid. 110 quid. It must be this similar kind of thing where they're calling them the pro shirts with the embroidered kind of bits and pieces on and stuff. I think that's a different shirt to what they used to sell. James is saying, if you're not on the Patreon, get in there. Andy is going to announce a slow grow painting challenge soon. Andy, I have a Necromunda gang in my basket. Just saying. Yes, so we're going to be doing something in the Patreon soon, basically, and it'll not be like a slow grow in like we're not going to take 8 months. It'll be more like a painting challenge. And I haven't fully decided what it's going to be. There's a bit of love for Necromunda at the minute to maybe kind of paint up some Necromunda warbands. But yeah, I'm potentially going to control it in the Patreon this time, just purely because Facebook is a nightmare for that kind of stuff, and Discord is just so much easier. It's only $2 a month to join the Discord, to join Patreon, and you get access to the Discord. So yeah, if you're interested, come across. Busey says only Newcastle football shirts cost 40 quid. Proper football teams cost more. I would never buy a Newcastle shirt, mate. Do not tar me with that brush. Paul says my relative's value marker is £5 a bottle of wine. I compare what I would have to pay for an item to how many bottles of wine it represents. If I would enjoy it more than that, I buy it, otherwise not. Yeah, a lot of people do that with like kind of compare to computer games, don't they? They compare things to a cinema ticket. How many cinema tickets would I get for that, and how much time will I get? Huma Root says, with Mega Drive, we could rent games for the weekend, though you can't do that these days. You can still do it, mate. You can rent the discs and stuff, mate. Yeah, there's still plenty of places do like you know, like the old Love Film subscription. There's still places that will kind of send you a disc out, and then you got to post them back and stuff. Christian sharing the link to Goblin Gaming. Thank you very much, Christian. If you do want to buy a Techless, you will get I think it's 20% off at Goblin Gaming, and I make a small commission from that. So yeah, please do go and check it out. Krabby saying the new Newcastle shirt is 70 quid, mate. Yeah, they must have gone up a bit, maybe, since I bought one, but they're certainly not over 100 quid, as far as I'm aware, like not just a normal replica shirt. Mark's saying High Score on Netflix. That's the one, mate. That's the one I was trying to think of. Oh, God, I'm well behind the chat now. High Score. Yes, it was really good. I watched the whole thing while sitting building some bits and pieces here. Phil says, wow, the likes jumped. Did they really? I can't see likes from here. VJ says, wow, talking about taking your film to get developed, showing your age there. Yeah, but it's the same thing, isn't it? It's like, this is like the early days of 3D printing. You can do it yourself, and the quality might not be quite as good, and it's going to be a lot more difficult, but maybe you get the enjoyment from printing them. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Paul saying, I absolutely love my resin printer, but I wouldn't want to print an entire army with it. That's kind of my feeling with them as well, mate. Yoakum says, how many Legacy t-shirts can I get for a Techless? I think you can get about, you probably get 9, you get about 9 or 10. How much are they? Are they like 14 quid? 14 quid a t-shirt, something like that? How many is that? I can't even, my maths is not, you get about 7, I think, mate. My maths is not very good in my head. Busey says, remember those dodgy Game Boy carts from the market? 25 games in one. Exactly, mate. James is saying, I've had bad steak dinners. Yeah. Tony says, if it went to 3D printing only, I'd be pushed out of the hobby altogether. That's another point, mate. There's a lot of people don't want to do that. VJ saying it's only a matter of time before we get DCP, 3D printers and files. Pomsy saying, you can't buy 3 of something, don't buy it. That's a good rule. Not a rule I follow, but it's a good rule. David Moffat says, I'm slaving away at work today, just popping in to say hello and add to the video to my watch later list. Thank you very much, mate. William saying, on STL Farms, Yadaro, who makes the best orcs made by anyone, attempted that market. After about 4 months, they have discontinued due to the file share and piracy. Hard fail in that market. That's exactly my point, mate. Look at basically how cassette-based video games and stuff were years ago and stuff. Everybody used to copy those things. The same thing happened when everybody chipped their PlayStations and were playing, and you could just copy them like in a CD writer. All those kind of things, like piracy is what kills a lot of these things. And until they get a handle on STL file piracy, and try and like link them to a machine or something like that, most companies won't be able to make a business alone from that kind of stuff. The ones that are kind of managing to do it are the ones that almost run it like a Patreon, I think, where you have like a subscription model. And even then, it wouldn't surprise me if one person who subscribes is sharing them with 2 or 3 friends and they're just splitting the subscription cost. Super Punker Man says, if I had 20 grand, I'd buy a $10 watch and put the rest in a long-term savings account. You'd be better off buying Games for Workshop shares, mate. Paul says, if I had 20k, I would buy a full whiskey cask and leave it for a decade. Did you see in the news recently, mate, there was a guy who basically, his dad had bought him a bottle of 18-year-old Macallan whiskey every year since he was born, so that he thought it would be kind of cool that when the kid was 18, he would have 18 bottles of 18-year-old Macallan, one for each different year. And they must do a box every year that has the year on, if you like. And he's just put them up for auction. He's expecting to sell them for 40-odd grand, I think it was. Wow, this is jumping around all over the place. Do you know what it is, folks? I think the chat is all over the place. Some of the stuff I'm reading now is what I was reading out earlier on. It was definitely bouncing around the chat. Mark was saying there. Oh, sorry, what was that one? Robert said, just thought I'd stop and say hi. Had to work today, so I'll have to watch later. Take care. Thank you very much, Robert. VJ saying, congrats on the health kick, mate. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, mate. I'm getting into it now. I'm not missing the booze, and I'm not really missing kind of like sweet treats and like pizzas and any of that kind of stuff. But I'm obviously kind of cutting calories, so I haven't quite getting over the fact that like my portion sizes are smaller yet. Lord Maiden saying congratulations. Jigabachi says no booze for a week, no wonder you're shaking. I don't really drink that much, to be fair, mate. It's probably like through lockdown. I probably drank more through lockdown, having a bottle of wine during the week with my wife and stuff like that, and a couple of beers on a weekend, sitting in the garden when the weather's been nice over the summer. But yeah, I don't move enough, basically. You know, this is kind of my job. I sit here and I play games and I paint stuff and I build miniatures and I make videos. It's not exactly the most sort of exercise-worthy job, is it? Mark was saying £105 is a lot of money. However, if you like the model and the lore, people will buy it. I'm planning about getting Archeon as a display piece after I finish the Slaves to Darkness. Yeah, I agree, mate. I don't disagree. I just think that when you start hitting that kind of a price, you're selling a miniature to a limited market, and that limited market becomes even smaller because of such a high price. But yeah, I'm not saying it's not worth it. If it's something you really want, like I said before, value is very subjective. James says £8 in a week. Bloody hell, mate! Did your leg fall off when you were running? I've been doing really well, mate. I want to see where I can get to by the end. So I'm having a full month of no booze, kind of sticking to healthy, no cheat days, making sure I'm exercising. My little one started his new nursery, so it's 2 miles to nursery and back, and I have to do that twice a day. So I'm walking 4 miles a day in general. I actually went for a run today because it was absolutely lashing it down this morning. So my wife took him to nursery in the car this morning. So I'd missed my first my 2 mile walk this morning. So I went for a run at lunchtime with my wife, and we did about 2.4 mile or something like that. And I was absolutely blowing, and I had to kind of keep stopping to walk and stuff. But it's it's baby steps. I'm getting there. Steve Bollinger says, just a quick ego massage, bro, as this is the best live chat I've been involved with. Top man, knowledgeable and very listenable, and is rather used epoxy than 3D print in a minute. Thank you very much, Steve. That's much appreciated, mate. I've been doing these live chats probably for about 2 years now, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. And I just really enjoy them. I love having the chance to kind of interact and talk hobby with people and just have a bit of a natter, really. I always put a lot of work in and do a lot of research, make sure that I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just some kind of font of knowledge. I kind of research everything. I might see something, I'll get a bit of an idea for a topic, and then I'll spend at least a day kind of researching bits and pieces and speaking to people and getting more information. So I just, like, it's easy to to sit here and just say anything. But then you got to read the comments and everybody goes, "Oh, you're full of shit. Like that's not true. That's not right. I know that for a fact. That's not right." So you got to make sure that you kind of know your stuff, really. But I enjoy that. It's a bit of a kind of a challenge, a bit of a thrill, really. Palmsy saying needs new batteries in the scales, probably. You cheeky beggar, mate. Iron says, I still buy a ton of board games, which is what my local store focuses on. Still buy dice, paints, books, etc. Yeah, if it's a board game in store, mate, then I guess it's probably different. Christian sharing the Patreon there as well. Thank you very much, mate. Busey saying £8 in cash, not £8 in weight, maybe. No, definitely not, mate. Definitely £8 in weight. Steve says, isn't it 50 pence for a Sunderland shirt? No, I think Sunderland shirts are still like... I don't know, actually. Do you know what it is? I've not bought a football shirt in such a long time. Last football shirt I bought was a Rams shirt, and that was like, I think that might have been 75 quid. But it did come from like NFL Europe or something. Joachim says, I love that Andy can't resist the calculation example. Thank you for being you. Is that why you asked me the question, mate? You little bugger. Yeah, my mental maths is not very good. All these numbers that I worked out for this, all done on my calculator. Palmsy saying where we had, folks. Busey saying you can't beat a good Bell's or Grant's whiskey. I'm not a fan of those, mate. I'll be honest. I've got a nice Lafroig that my wife bought me as a nice gift for when I left my last job. She bought me a nice bottle of Lafroig. And I do like Monkey Shoulder. Monkey Shoulder is kind of like my entry price kind of sort of go-to whiskey, if you like. But yeah, I quite like I like that kind of stuff. Busey says mix with cola and loads of ice. If you mix them with cola, mate, it doesn't really matter what whiskey you're drinking. Phil says what you need, and he's a puppy. I do not need a pet, mate. Absolutely not. 100%. I'm not much of an animal lover. Pomsy saying, Pomsy saying vodka is totally fine, mate. It's calorie free. Yeah, it's not even a case of that, mate. It's the fact that I am. That's when I start dialing a pizza, when I've had a few beers. VJ says I was up at 5 a.m. to go for a 7k run before the stream starts. Legend, mate. Peter says I discovered today I can no longer run. Just a medium jog for 25 metres does me in. Yeah, I'm definitely. My kind of one of the things I did get when I tried to go running the last time was I got really bad back pain. I think I mentioned it many times before. I had a motorbike accident years and years ago, and I've got kind of a weak spot in my back, and my core strength is pretty garbage. And I need to kind of sort my core strength out before I start running again. But all this walking I'm doing at the minute seems to be kind of sort of bringing it back. And when I went for a run, I did a little bit of a run yesterday when I went out for a walk. Luckily, I had shorts and a t-shirt on and a pair of trainers and stuff. And I thought I'll have a little gentle jog while I'm out and see if I get any pain. And I felt all right. I felt pretty good. So I went for a run today with my wife. She's much fitter than I am, to be fair. And I had absolutely no pain anywhere. It felt really good running, apart from the fact that I was just massively out of breath and I was blowing like mad. Like, obviously, my lung capacity is probably right down because I've not exercised much. My gut was hurting because I'm kind of lugging my gut around with me. But, like, as far as my back and my legs and stuff, I had no pain at all. Vincent VT says, hello, mate. He says, I started biking again after 2 months of doing nothing. I got winded after 10k, which shocked me a bit. Yeah, me and my wife used to do like kind of like 10k assault courses and stuff, and like 10k like runs along the coast, like organised runs and things. We used to do boot camps and all this kind of stuff. And I used to be relatively fit. I mean, I was out of breath, I was tired and stuff, but I would complete them and I'd do a decent time. Like I can't even run a mile at the minute, like without stopping for a walk. So yeah, it's going to take some building it back up, to be fair. Peter said I used to be able to run 20 miles. You look like you used to be a runner, Peter. I can tell. You look like you're built for running, mate. Super Punker Man says Andy is a wise nerd. He fact checks. Yeah. Dirk says be like Andy. Tiberius says blended whiskey. Yeah. VJ says switching from beer to vodka, lime and soda was a real waistline helper for me. The problem is, mate, I don't really like drinking like vodka at home. I like the taste of wine. I've always been a big wine lover, and I like the taste of a beer. I'm not really, if I'm going to drink kind of like lime and soda, I'd rather just drink lime and soda without the vodka, to be fair. I was just sitting about the house. Lord Maiden says, get Ring Fit Adventure. I've been looking at it, mate, actually, and it looks pretty fun. I was really tempted, but I thought I'm going to kind of give it a go and see if I can kind of stick to what I'm doing at the minute. and see how that goes. Because what I'm thinking, like something like that is almost like a top up. Basically, if there's days when I'm not getting the miles in because I'm busy with work or whatever it is, it's a nice thing to kind of to do on an evening or something. James is saying anything's better than beer, mate. I'm on the wine. Yeah, I don't really drink a lot of beer, to be fair. I definitely drink, or I used to drink more wine. Chuck and Deb Taylor says, nice to catch the chat while at home. Still working on the dwarf infantry. I know I take way too long by painting. It's the perfectionist in me, but I enjoy it. That's what matters. That is what matters. How you hobby is entirely up to you, as long as you're getting enjoyment from it. James says, I got back on that on Saturday. I was knackered on Sunday morning. Cheers with water on your healthy progress. Yes, cheers with water to you too. Busey says 7k or 7k Australian dollars. 10k, mate. 10 kilometres. Pomsy says vodka is nice if you like drinking paint thinner. Margot says you should buy your little one an army every year until he's 18. By that time he'll own the bank for 8k. I think it'd be cheaper to buy him a bottle of whiskey every year, mate. Super Punker Man says, man, I'm glad since I do a lot of carpentry, it gets a good amount of exercise regularly because jogging 80 feet and getting winded sounds horrifying. Yeah, I've not had like, or what I should say is I have had quite sedentary jobs for quite some time now, like office-based jobs and driving like long distances and not like just sitting behind the wheel of the car, if you like, and it catches up with you like. James says 2 hour long Ring Fit adventure stream from Andy for hobby hangout this week. Then not a chance, mate. And Vigi says, oh yeah, context. I was talking about what I drink when I'm working at the club. I don't really drink around the house except when Dan comes over. See, I don't really go out, mate. That's the difference. I don't really go out anywhere. Very rarely, like once in a blue moon, I'll go to like the pub with Jason, and we might have sort of 3 or 4 pints or something like that. But generally, if I am drinking, I'm drinking like at home, and that's why it tends to be a bottle of wine or like a nice craft beer or something like that. But if I'm drinking beer at home, probably lucky if I have like 2 cans maximum. Speaking of which, our game Eldritch Horror was awesome. Nice one, mate. Did you get it? Did you have fun with that one, eh? Simon Dave says, how's it going, Andy? Very well, thanks for asking, mate. Peter says his last serious exercise was free weights, no good for running. Yeah, at the minute I'm at that stage where I'm basically cutting calories and I'm moving more. I'm not trying to do anything too kind of special. I'm not trying to limit carbs, or I'm not trying to like limit like fats or anything. I'm literally just taking in less calories and exercising more and getting to that kind of stage really where I just build up my fitness, drop a little bit of weight, and just generally feel a bit healthier and a bit better. And VJ saying, personally, I take clear spirits over brown. Given the choice, mate, I'd kind of have whiskey or rum over vodka, but purely just because I like the tastes. Nothing to do with health reasons, obviously. Super Punker Man says, when I would hang out at my friend's house, I don't have to pick up anyone. I might just leave the car at home and walk the 4 miles. Well, that's a bit of a hike, mate. Does that mean you've got to walk back as well? James says, I do like the look of this Van Seer gang. So is that what you're all fancying? I don't want to exclude anybody from it in the Patreon. I want to try and keep it quite open. So I've got a couple of ideas, but I'll float them one with you all tomorrow. Vincent says counting macros is overrated. The important part is counting calories and getting enough protein. Yeah, I'm making sure my protein intake's pretty good, so that when I'm losing weight and not losing muscle, if you like. So I'm kind of making sure the protein's high enough. But yeah, generally it's going pretty good, mate. Pumpkin Man saying an 8 mile round trip. That is good going, mate. Jeffrey Higgins said, I'm a teacher and used to standing for 7 hours a day. Digital teaching has me a chair potato. That'll do it, mate, as well, yeah. Yoakum says, I haven't been drinking any alcohol for about 5 months now. Really looking forward to my first IPA when I'm off the painkillers. Also longing for riding a mountain bike. Yeah, you got your operation coming up soon, mate, haven't you? You'll have to let me know how it goes, mate. Let me know when it is and stuff, and I'll make sure I send you some good wishes. Vijay says, yeah, it's a great game. Dan has had it for ages, and he has all the expansions except one. I actually just bought the one he didn't have for him as a surprise gift. That's nice, mate. I've not played Eldritch Horror. I've got Arkham Horror, the card game. I've not played that yet, actually. Arnold says, Warcry comment was at 23:11, so that must be at 10:11. Let me go back and see if I can find it. It completely disappeared. It's not showing up on my screen, mate. It was there, I was reading it, and then it disappeared. And I have got it on live chat. Let me switch to top chat and move back again and see if it makes any difference. 10, 11. Let me scroll back because I was in the middle of reading it and then it just disappeared. And a few people have been asking, oh, it won't even go back that far now. Oh. Sorry, mate. If you can cut and paste it, put it in again because I'll be interested to know what you were going to say. Tiberius says, all this talk of health intake and exercise. I'm pished on premixed Jack and Cokes and I can't. The first time I had Jack Daniel's honey was in a can. You can get the honey and lemonade cans. I got one to try and it was lovely. And I did buy a bottle of that after that. Six and Heads is winter's coming. You need a bit of fat on you for warmth. I'll still have a bit of fat on me, mate. Don't worry about that. I'm not suddenly going to become skinny and bony, that's for sure. Superpunker Man says his dad is having the same problem. He's a high school teacher. Arnold says Jeffrey Higdon. Yeah, sorry, mate. It won't let me go back now. I can't find it. If somebody can cut and paste it for me, it won't let me go back far enough to find it. Unless I can find it on the screen up here. Let me see if I can put on the toggle timestamps. Oh, there we are. Let's see if I can see it here. That's what it was. Right, I just need to make it twice the size now so I can see it. Right, let me zoom in and read it again. Jeffrey Higdon. 10, 11. With starter sets like Warcry, they know how much they can make off it and they limit the number, thus fueling the scramble for people to purchase it before it's gone. Yeah, there is an element of that, mate, as well. What they tend to do, mind, is for these new sets... Superpunker Man saying, yeah, some of the chats disappeared. Yeah, when people have been asking me about how I've seen the whole thing tonight, or what order am I reading it in, there definitely seemed to be some stuff missing and jumping out. It was weird. So what happens is with a lot of those, like the Warcry set, with the Kill Team set, essentially what they do is they almost use them as a way to pay for the terrain, because terrain making is quite expensive. Because they know they won't sell a lot of those kits. So the best way to get their money back quickly from those kits is put them in with a new set, and that's a quick way to kind of to make your money back from a terrain set. So if you notice any of these kits that come with a big bulk of terrain, that's why they put them in those starter sets. Where were we up to there? Fiji says, the only problem I found with Eldritch Horror was that I had a lot of components cards. They really need to find a way to cut that down and manage it better. Yeah, there's loads of people may have like massive boxes I've seen kind of organising all the cards and stuff. Jeffrey Higgins says, with all this COVID crap going on, being at your live feeds has been one of the few things I get to look forward to. Also love being on the Discord. Patreon is totally worth it. Thank you, Jeffrey. It's nice that folks kind of quite like these hangouts and stuff. I mean, we've got like, 85 people now? We're just kind of rambling around, having a bit of a chat and stuff now. It's nice. I mean, I remember doing these live streams when we used to get like 10 people, 20 people. But they're still fun. They're actually a bit easier because there's so many comments come through now. I don't have to kind of think too much. Like I used to have to make sure I had loads and loads and loads of research, because if it ever went quiet, I needed something to talk about and stuff. And obviously, I'm more comfortable doing it these days. But yeah, it's cool that we get some decent numbers. Dave says, sounds like your messaging software is suffering race conditions and messages are arriving in the wrong order. It's just YouTube, mate. It's just YouTube's system, to be fair. So it's no different to what I normally use, mate. VJ says, any game where you have 20 plus discrete stacks of cards is going to get messy. Yeah, 100%, mate. Arnold says, you missed the envy of Red Rose Wargaming as well. Did I miss something? I've got no idea, mate. I've got no idea what's been going on with the chat tonight. I apologise if I missed anybody's comments tonight, but for some reason, YouTube's playing it with the chat tonight. Steve says, Mark was saying there, topic for the painting challenge, any skirmish game, paint a band, gang, team of your liking, we all have one. That's kind of where I'm thinking, mate. I'm trying to keep it less specific, I think. It's not about one particular game this time. It's more about just like a nice little challenge. I might give it a theme, or or I might even incorporate the option of a little diorama if people want to do that instead. Steve said, I'm drinking JD with honey. I'm listening tonight. I like that stuff, mate. Peter saying loads of chats gone from his. Honestly, is it 23:12, so that'll be 10:12 my time. Oh, there it is. I've had my resin printer for 2 weeks now. Can come on a Wednesday stream 1 week if you fancy and go through what I've learned as a newbie. It's great, but not near GW standard. Let's talk about that one, Anna. That would be really cool, actually. You're going to be seeing his operation on Friday. Yeah, trying to take less pills now. I have to break it down bit by bit because I get nausea when not taking them. I tell you what, mate, you've done well to get to that point. So absolutely 100%, mate. Friday, I'm sure everything's going to go perfect, mate. Let us know how it goes. Peter said, I try to take less after my op too. It's hard, but drugs can be worse in the long run, 100%. Lord Maiden says, this is why we need to do more video chats in Discord. The problem is, mate, it only works in Discord if you're in the Discord. So this is YouTube. This is where I do my live chats. It's normally always fine. For whatever reason it is tonight, it's been doing a bit funny. James says, I missed that. Andy missed us telling about a fella behind him. Must have nicked all his stuff by now. Dave's saying, one weird thing with GW is there are problems with card packs. They get the supply side wrong each and every time. Scalpers for Necromunda cards were selling them. I don't know if they get it wrong. I mean, I don't think they misjudge it. They must intentionally only plan to do so many. And the problem is it's self-fulfilling, isn't it? That basically every time they do it, they sell out because people know they're going to sell out. Part of me wonders whether it's part of a kind of like a wider plan to make sure that they sell like the end of year books and all that kind of stuff. There's got to be a reason behind it because it just makes no sense to not do those kind of things. Dave saying on the eBay at 5 times the price 40 minutes after pre-orders went up. Yeah, and that annoys me that. Pomsy said, oh yeah, new codexes announced. Yeah, I saw that, new codexes. Super Punker Man says here, instead of Inktober drawing a new thing every day for 31 days in October, Painttober, paint a new thing every week. Ooh, we could do something like that. That sounds pretty cool. And James in the margins on those card packs must be amazing. I can imagine they must be, mate. I mean, I think the difference is that I think all the printed stuff is done out in China. I don't think they do it over in the UK. So I'm not 100% exactly where that's all made and stuff for that. Millions of messages. That's always what happens. So, folks, I've managed to kind of catch up this time, more so by the fact that I think it missed most of the chat out for some reason. James is saying cheaper if they get it done in China, mate. Yeah, it makes me think they get it done in China, and maybe they just want to do one print run. They don't want to go back and do a second one randomly. But I've got no idea why they do that way, mate. Dear sir, I reckon it's the North Koreans, Kim Jong-un, buying loads of cards from Chinese factories, kidnapping their cards. Pomsy says, we'll have to redo this stream tomorrow night. I will be doing a cut-down version of this stream, which will be up tomorrow night. So anybody that doesn't sit through the whole thing or missed the start and wants to just catch up on the salient points, watch out for that. Tony says, proper good listen tonight. Managed to get Groot underpainted and first main colour down. It's going well. Pictures, mate. Want to see some pictures? Lord Maiden says, yeah, they do a single print run of the dice and the cards. The dice, I'm not surprised they only do one print run of those ones. Some of the latest ones have been awful. But, yeah, interesting anyway. Right, folks. If everybody's got any particular questions, anything you want to ask me, I'm going to kind of, if you haven't got anything in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to wrap it up and we'll call it a night. But if there's anything, there's still 83 of you in the chat. If there's anything you specifically want to talk about, please shout now. Palms I shall be complaining to YouTube first thing in the morning. Yeah, that makes no difference at all, mate. That's for sure. VJ is saying, yeah, those Lumineth dice are not good. I'm not a big fan. Somebody was talking about them online the other day, saying about how you can, you can fix the dice to make sure that they roll like more sixes, if you like, by what was it? Something to do with like filing certain sides more rounded so that they roll over them more often and stuff. Jeffrey Higgins says, thanks again, Andy. It was a good stream. Thank you, Jeffrey, and I appreciate your support as well, mate. Lord Maid says, the reason why other places do discounts for GW stuff is understandable. The reason other places do discounts. It's more, I tell you what's happened with the GW stuff, mate. It's just the fact that it's become commonplace now. It's become commonplace for any miniatures game to be discounted because there's so many places online, like there's so many places do outside of GW are just kind of like a bloke in a shed kind of thing selling stuff, has like no overhead costs in general. And 20% seem to become like the standard online. I looked into opening a game store years ago, and I knew for a fact I had to do a 20% discount, otherwise it just wasn't worth it. Nobody's going to shop somewhere that this is relatively new, unless they're going to get a 20% discount that they get everywhere else. And by the time you factor that in, and factor in your overheads for opening a shop and all that kind of stuff, it's just not worth the hassle. You need to carry a lot of stock because people expect it to come quickly. So you need to invest a lot of money in stock. You need to discount so your margins are particularly low. So you need to rely upon selling high volumes of stuff, and that's pretty difficult in the early days. So when it just financially didn't stack up. It just wasn't worth the hassle, basically. What was that one about? Peter says, when does your new slow growth start? It'll be starting soon, mate. I haven't completely fixed it. The two other ones that I've done in the past, I did one for Warpath, which was about for Dead Zone, which was about 6 weeks long, and that was like a kind of like a build and paint, like a war band or a strike team for Dead Zone. And then I've done one for 8 months, basically, which was the Kings of War, to paint 2,000 points in 8 months, doing it like a proper slow grow, if you like. The next one will start probably in the next couple of weeks, probably the next week, and will be more focused around short time scale. I'm probably talking 6 to 8 weeks max. And it's going to, we're talking about low model count stuff, just to kind of motivate people to get some stuff painted. Really, the BlackJack Legacy kind of painting challenge stuff is always about getting stuff done. It's never about how good a painter you are. It's just to try and motivate you to get stuff done, give you that little deadline. We're not attending tournaments at the minute, all that kind of stuff. We're not even like really attending like games nights and things, really, for most people. So it's just to give you a little nudge, really, and like a little bit of a bit of a carrot and stick, if you like, to try and encourage people to get stuff done. Dave says, how toxic do you think GW sprue plastic is? The difference with GW sprue plastic, mate, is I am not getting it all over my hands or breathing it in as a liquid. If we're comparing it to resin. Red Rose Wargaming says, do you want to buy some pegs? Are you getting a D&D character again already? James says, I think we'll get these Van Saw just in case. Let's have a chat, mate. Yeah. Arnold says, could not put away my phone. Very interesting chat today. Need to sleep now. Thank you very much, Arnold. Take care, matey. And thank you for your donation as well. Much appreciated. Jacob says, what are your current top 3 favourite minis games? Ooh, Warcry is always in there. I love Warcry until something comes along and nudges that one off top spot. I think that's definitely the one I enjoy playing the most, purely because it is just so. It's just the ease of access is just so simple, and I love the minis. I'll be honest, I'm a bit of a spoiler here before we do the review video soon, but I really like God Tier much more than I expected to. It's a lot deeper than I thought it was. It's got a lot more interesting kind of aspects to it than I thought it would. And when I first played Super Fantasy Brawl, I absolutely loved that kind of arena combat thing. And I loved the fact it was pretty straightforward rules, and you instantly got into like kind of strategizing and thinking about tactics and of what you could do. Because you had limited options of what you could do, you thought more about in what order to do them, if you like. And I find God Tier is very similar in that. But God Tier brings a few things to the table that Super Fantasy Brawl doesn't. I think I love them both, but in different ways. So yeah, in fact, I bought another team for God Tier myself at the weekend. I ordered one to come, and I bought myself. You can get like little clip-on rings that go on the bases of the models, so that because it's a factionless game basically. So you can just pick up like 3 different champions, any 3 champions, just pick them up, and they're different colours because they represent different things. You can obviously paint them, but they come coloured plastic. There's blue, which are the Guardians. There's yellow, which are Maelstroms. There's red, which are Slayers, and there's green, which are Shapers. And then obviously your opponent will have similar colours and stuff. So you can get these little clip-on rings, basically a white set and a black set, so you can tell which models are which, basically, when you're playing. I'm really enjoying playing that, to be fair. Outside of that, what other miniature game am I probably playing much of at the minute? Probably. I haven't played a lot, mate, to be fair, recently. Those are probably the 2 games that I've played at the minute. And I've been watching a lot of Blitzball stuff. Thank you, VJ. But just can't get my hands on it. Now I've actually seen what the game is about. I'm quite interested in it, actually. And the idea of painting half a box of Blood Bowl minis is a lot more kind of possible, basically. Lord Maiden says, it's because GW don't play for the other places' stores. What's the reason why other places do discounts is understandable. Because GW don't pay for other places' stores. No, essentially, Games Workshop keep it full price, because then if Games Workshop started discounting their stuff, that would force everybody else, all of the retailers, to discount their stuff to match the retailer, basically. Retailers can sell it for whatever price they want, basically, but they have to make a margin on it. And the way they compete is they all discount. But like, if you go to like Element Games, if you go to Goblin Games, if you go to Wayland Games, if you go to Triple Helix, if you go to Firestorm Games, all the big games companies, they discount everything. There's very little, if anything, that's at retail price. Paul saying Infinity is usually discounted, much like GW. Mantic's discounted. Infinity's discounted. Privateer Press is discounted. Everybody's discounted. That's just that, and this is what I mean about. I think GW almost factor that in when they price things like Techless. Say £105. Nobody's gonna we'll get the hardcore who buy in store and buy online from Games Workshop direct. I have no idea why anybody buys from Games Workshop direct for that kind of stuff, but some people do, and we'll get all of them. But generally, people will just buy online with 10 or 20% discount. William Jones says the bloke in his shed is my favourite supplier. Always going to support that guy. Peter says I understand GW sell their stuff. Where was that one? To third parties at the same price as their own shops. I can't imagine this. If they do sell it to their own shops, then it would make sense to sell it at the same price. But then their shops sell it at full retail price. So I don't know how it works, mate. Lord Maiden saying their store prices are the same as their website prices. If you buy from Games Workshop, whether it's in store or whether it's online, it's full retail price, basically. Tiberius says how you start a shop is get a stand in an existing store, so you're now brick and mortar and can do mail orders on eBay. That's how it's done these days. Yeah, yeah. It's not what I want to do though. I don't want to kind of like a shelf in somebody's store kind of thing. Because even then you're still going to have to pay them rent, if you like. Dave says, I'm supporting a man in his shed named Realm Shapers on this Etsy website. He does cracking resin bases, and I think he's having a baby with his wife. Nice one, mate. Richard says, Walking Dead slow grow. A Walking Dead one? I'm not sure. Is there that many people who don't have painted minis for Walking Dead these days? I'm not sure. D. Sonia says, well, I'm off to surf with the kids. Thank you for another awesome live stream. Take care. Thank you very much, and enjoy the surf. Blizzard says, always prods me into painting more. Good stuff, mate. Tiberius saying, GW plastic is polystyrene. Yes. Lee Burns says, cracking stream, Andy, well played. Thank you, Lee, mate. Peter says, polystyrene isn't at the crumbly packing form. It depends what you do with it, mate. That's the thing. VJ says number 3 will be whatever that new Mantic board game is. Number 3. Well, I haven't played it yet, mate. I'm picking my words carefully here. I was talking with Martin from Mantic today about it. And I should know more in the next week. But I don't think I'll be able to share anything just yet. It depends. If it's not very good, it won't be number 3, mate. That's for sure. Blizzard's saying looking forward to those boats. That picture that was shared today looked pretty cool, mate. VG saying, so how much do we have to donate in the super chat to get Andy to spill the beans about the Mantic board game? No amount of money, mate, could make me spill the beans. I've promised myself to secrecy. I said I wouldn't say anything about it, and I have to stick to that. VG saying, yes, Andy's on the Blitzball train. I can get you a box in the UK, mate. I know someone who's doing a mass shipment. I'll put you in touch via Discord. Thank you, mate. I almost bought a second-hand copy of the original Blitzball on eBay, which had no miniatures in it, but it went for like 60 quid without miniatures. And I was like, oh, that's too much. Lord Maiden says, it's what I was told by a GW employee that GW don't pay for the other stores' staff or costs. Yeah, potentially not, mate. It's one way to kind of to keep the sales high, I suppose. Because then they have to work to make sure the stock. Make sure at the end of the day, they don't want to just sink money into these shops and make a loss on them. They have to cover their costs, if you like. I mean, it would make sense to do it that way, but then they're also forced to keep them at full price as well. I've got no idea what that was about. Chuck and Deb Taylor says, so if I stop at 1 litre, I should have no problems. There's definitely some chat not coming through to me tonight. I'm missing stuff. Dirk says, Walking Dead's one of the few games I have no unpainted miniseries for. Joachim says, I got about 65 unpainted zombies for Walking Dead. And Ian says, taking a break from unpacking to get some minis off my 3D printer. Self-designed minis this time. Right, folks, there's 11 o'clock here. I'm going to call that a night now. Thank you very much, every single one of you. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do subscribe. It really does help me. And if you are subscribed and you haven't clicked the bell button for the notifications, please do click the bell button. That really helps just to let you know when I've got new stuff coming out. When new stuff comes out, though, if folks get a notification and they watch it quite quickly, like within the first day or so of it going live, it really helps to push that video out to more people. So those kind of things really help. If you're not a member of the Patreon and you'd like to check that out, please do come over and check that out. $2 a month is the minimum pledge level, and for that you get access to the Discord group, which is like over 100 people strong in there now, and it's a nice lively place to be. And we're going to start doing more kind of these painting challenges specifically for the Patreons in there as well. There's a big enough community in there now that it's worth running those challenges for those folks. So please do check it out. I will see you Wednesday for the hobby hangout. I've got a lot of filming to do this week. I'm trying to get a couple of videos out this week as well. Tomorrow I need to edit this video into the little clip, the short one. Loads on my plate, but I'm getting back to a routine now, so you should start seeing some more content coming out from me. So thanks very much, folks, and I will see you on Wednesday. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month, and there is lots of different tiers and bonuses which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.